contacted the Communications and Internet Services Adjudication Scheme, otherwise known as CSAS, an independent body that deals with disputes between customers and telecom providers. But it decided that as she wasn't actually a Virgin Mobile customer, it wouldn't even look at her complaint.
I'm still getting collection letters for over £1,000. Virgin Media refused to speak to me anymore. I'm just literally at my wit's end. This has been nearly a year. The other thing that's really concerning about all this is that it hasn't been resolved, and somebody may have got away with some fraudulent activity with my name and my details, and they still haven't been caught. So there is something at the back of my mind that says, well, this could happen again.
With nowhere else to turn, Katie has contacted us to see if we can help. So we put her in touch with Martyn James from consumer complaints website Resolver. To get the debt collectors to back off, he says Katie should contact them to say that the debt is currently disputed with Virgin Mobile.
So, Katie, I can only imagine how frustrating this has been for you.
Well, I mean, it's just been terrible. The time that I've spent trying to get this resolved is just ridiculous.
A good piece of advice is to speak to a debt collection agency and instruct them that the matter is being formally investigated as a complaint and they are to suspend all debt collection activities while this is ongoing.
If this now affects my credit record, I will be absolutely furious.
You can dispute anything that's on there. So even if there's a black mark against you, you can have a note called a note of disassociation, very formal sounding, put on there that basically says this market is under dispute.
That's really good to know, thank you.
Martyn suspects that Katie could be a victim of identity theft and that criminals who forged or even stolen documents in her name have gone on to use her details in order to commit fraud. And that's something retired newsagent Alan Smith can relate to. In October 2018, having been a Virgin Media customer for over 20 years, he decided to switch to a better deal with another company. So he was rather confused when 3 months later, his bank statement showed 3 direct debits to Virgin Media, totalling £132.
I went down to see the bank. What are these 3 direct debits? I've not authorised them. He says, yes, they've been authorised. I said, well, they're not mine, so stop them. Then rang Virgin up and said, what are they?
But worse was to come. Virgin Media told Alan that he'd ordered 3 top-end mobile phones, which had been delivered to an address in London. So as well as the £132 he already knew about, he now owed them nearly £4,500 for the 3 handsets.
I just didn't believe them. I thought when they realise, they'll realise it was a mistake, but they still want me to pay nearly £4,500 for the 3 iPhones that they say I ordered, which I didn't.
Alan can't understand how he can be chased for phones delivered to an address with which he has no connection.
If somebody orders an equipment, then it should be delivered to the address that they've got as their account holder, not to some other address anywhere else in the country.
So how can 2 people be charged for high-end phones that they've never ordered? Well, according to Mike Haley from fraud prevention organisation CIFAS, both cases definitely are down to identity theft, with fraudsters using Katie and Alan's personal details to, in effect, steal the phones. He says mobile phone contracts in particular are seen as soft targets by scammers because there are usually very few details required to sign up.
Name, address, probably a date of birth, an existing number and some financial details such as a bank account, but they may not all belong to the individual who you're impersonating.
And Mike says in cases like Katie and Alan's, where you might be being chased for a debt but haven't technically had any money stolen, the police won't even investigate.
Identity theft, if you like, is a precursor for identity fraud. So someone can steal your personal details, know your name, address and some of the credentials you need, but they don't actually make any money from that. Identity fraud is where those details are used to make applications for credit cards, for bank accounts, to get loans in your name. So fraud is the harmful activity, but it needs an ID theft to begin with.
But I'm pleased to say that there was good news for Alan and Katie when we contacted Virgin Media about their cases. The company has apologised to them both and told us that it'll be offering compensation for the inconvenience caused. In Katie's case, it says a breakdown in communication meant that her issue was not immediately flagged to its fraud team. But it now accepts that she had never opened an account with Virgin Mobile and was not responsible for the debt. It says the account has now been closed and that Katie's credit file won't be impacted. As for Alan, Virgin Media says that a full investigation has concluded that the 3 mobile phones purchased through his account were ordered fraudulently. While Katie and Alan's complaints both involved Virgin Media, we're aware of similar cases with other mobile phone providers. So should they all be doing more? Well, regulator Ofcom told us that alongside the police and industry bodies and providers, it's looking at how all parties can work together to better protect consumers. In the meantime, whilst Alan accepts that he has a part to play in keeping his personal information safe, he definitely believes that the phone companies should be upping their game in the fight against ID fraud.
Having been a customer for over 20 years, they should have taken into account the fact that I said I hadn't had these phones, and they couldn't prove that I had.